Well, the Supreme Court has declared that unconstitutional, which is a little odd since the Ten Commandments are engraved in stone on the front of the Supreme Court building. These principles, Jesus says, I haven't come to do away with them, but I've come to help you understand what they're really all about. I'm going to flip on through here. Now, some people did have a glimmer. This is the lawyer. Thank God for lawyers. This is a lawyer who says, Jesus, tell us what's the most important commandment. Jesus said, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind, and all your strength. The second is this, you shall love your neighbors yourself. There's no other commandment greater than these. The scribe said to him, you're right, teacher. You truly said he's one and there's no other beside him, and to love him with all the heart and all the understanding and all the strength, love one's neighbor, is much more than all whole burnt offerings and sacrifices. Now I want you to notice how Jesus responds to it. Jesus saw that he answered wisely, and he said, you are not far from the kingdom. You're not far from understanding what it means to have God ruling in your life. It's about love. But what is love? Madison Avenue and Hollywood have done a number on us. They've taught us to believe that love is a squishy feeling in the pit of your stomach. You know? Some enchanted evening, you will see a stranger. It's love. No, it's not. It's biology. Now, how good of God to give us such nice biology in the search for a mate. That's not love. Biblically, what is love? Love is to choose the best for another at whatever cost to yourself. Love is to choose the best for another at whatever cost to yourself. And that's what Jesus is talking about here in these 5 examples, these 5 illustrations that he is giving. Worship him alone. First commandment. Why? Because you love him. Don't make any idol of him because you love him. Don't drag his name in the mud because you love him. Because, and you can go right down through, the 10 Commandments are about love. But what's going on with these examples? Murder, adultery, divorce, oaths, and justice. Where does murder come from? You've heard, and this is one of the characteristics of this point. Ha, yes. One of the characteristics of this point is Jesus says, you've heard, but I say. And what he's dealing with here is, you've heard an interpretation of God's instructions that is purely legalistic. Because you see, love is so difficult to measure. Okay? The law says, don't kill somebody. I've never killed anybody. I'm God's favorite. Jesus says you've misunderstood what don't kill is all about. Where does murder come from? I say, if you are angry with someone, you are subject to judgment. Where does murder come from? It comes from anger. You got in my way. You ought not to exist because of me. Now, anger in and of itself is not necessarily a bad thing. God has given us this jolt of adrenaline sometimes to get over an obstacle. But it's like vinegar. A little vinegar once in a while is a good thing. Try to subsist on vinegar and you're in big trouble. Because most of the time, our anger is over an injured ego. You got in my way. You got what I deserved. You treated me badly. Anger. John says the same thing in his first letter. Why did Cain murder his brother? Because he was mad at him. You got what I wanted. Who does he think he is? Who does he think I am? He can't say that or think that or do that to me. And where does anger come from? I say to you, you're in danger of hellfire if you call somebody an idiot. Really? What's that law about murdering all about? It is, don't allow your contempt for others to spring into anger for others, to issue in murder of others. How easy it is to devalue people who disagree with me. We only have to look to Washington, D.C. You fool. You idiot. You brainless nincompoop. You don't count. You don't matter. You're not worth anything because you're opposing me. Jesus says that commandment is not kept simply because you don't kill somebody physically. Are you killing them spiritually? And so he gives two examples here. If you're presenting a sacrifice at the altar in the temple and you suddenly remember someone has something against you. Well, I'm religious. I'm very religious. I go to church every Sunday. Sometimes I even go to church twice on Sunday. So just don't bother me. Don't bug me. I don't care if our relationship is broken. I don't care. Leave your sacrifice at the altar. Go and be reconciled to that person. Then come and offer your sacrifice. Well, God, you commanded us to offer sacrifices. Yes, I did. But those sacrifices are worthless if, in fact, there's a broken relationship in your life. When you're on your way to court with your adversary, settle your differences quickly. Again, we're going to get this straightened out and I'm going to get what I have coming to me. Is that the most important thing? Or is the most important thing what's going on between the two of us? You say, well, man, you might be deprived of justice. Is that the most important thing? We're talking about the underlying principle of the kingdom. If God is to rule in my life, then am I going to value other persons? Am I going to think about their opinion before I think about my own? Or am I going to insist on my way and murder them? It's awful quiet in here. You have heard the commandment that says, you must not commit adultery. But I say, anyone who looks at a woman in order to lust after her has already committed adultery with her in his heart. By the grace of God, I have never committed adultery. So, I'm one of God's favorites. I have kept the law. But have I kept the Torah? Have I understood the instructions? What that's about? Not committing adultery is about not looking at a woman in order to use her as an object of my desire. To make her no longer a person, but to make her an object. And I owe this to Dallas Willard, but he makes a good point. He doesn't say it's adultery to look at a beautiful woman. It's an adultery to look at her for the purpose of lust. When I was a young man, and a young Christian, I was sure that I would never be a real Christian till a beautiful woman walked in the room and I felt nothing. I realized later that I would be dead when that happened. To appreciate a woman's beauty is not to lust after her. But she's mine to use as I wish to satisfy my desires in my head. And Jesus says, you've missed the principle, haven't you? The principle is to value her not as a beautiful woman, but as a woman, as a person. That's the challenge. The challenge is, do I live for my desire? I'm convinced that's why Paul uses the word flesh to talk about the sinful nature. Because we associate desire with our bodies. Desire for food, desire for water, desire for sex, desire for sleep. But those things are not evil in themselves. God gave them to us. No, the problem is when desire rules your life. That's the flesh. I will have what I want. I will have my way. I will. And ultimately, it is the flesh that kills churches. I will have my way. I will fulfill my desire. I've said this hundreds of places where I've spoken, but it still is amazing to me. Rarely do churches split over doctrine. Virgin birth, well, you know, there are different ways of looking at it. The deity of Christ, well, yeah, it's an important idea, but the resurrection, well, it's a lovely picture of eternal life. But try to change the color of the carpet. Green carpet? What are you thinking? My grandma was married on a red carpet, and by jiggies, my daughter's going to be married on a red carpet too. You don't think so? You got another thing coming. That's the flesh, folks. Amen. That's the flesh. Mm-hmm. I will have my way. So Jesus is not merely talking about sexual desire here. He's using sexual desire to talk about a life that is ruled by desire, that makes other people objects to use for my gratification. How serious is this? Well, if your eye causes you to sin, gouge it out and throw it away. Whoa. Better for you to lose part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. If your hand, even your right hand, causes you to sin, cut it off, throw it away. It's better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. My goodness. My goodness. Making other people objects of my desire is deadly. Sexual desire, desire for power, desire for rights, making another person an object of my desire is deadly. Now, once again, I say, these are not new laws that Jesus is making up. Oh, well, Moses was pretty easy. He just said, don't commit adultery. But I'm going to make it really tough. Don't look at a woman with lust. No, he's not making it tough. He's saying, this is what that was about. This is where that was supposed to lead, but you justified yourselves with your legalism. Oh, I don't go to bed with anybody else than my wife, but I mentally undress every woman I meet. And Jesus says, you've missed the whole point. You've missed the point that the instructions were meant to convey. This is the disaster of pornography. It used to be that if you wanted to indulge in pornography, you had to sneak into the drugstore late at night and ask the guy for the brown paper magazine that was under the counter there. Now, you can hardly avoid it. on your computer. Last night I was working on something and clicked it, and there came, oh, it was soft porn. But it was porn. And I couldn't get the thing off fast enough. Because for men, sexual pictures are like fish hooks. They're very tough to get out of your jaw when they're in there. Now, I don't know for sure about these figures, but the most recent figures I have seen is 80% of American men and 50% of American pastors are hooked on pornography. What does that do to our wives? Those poor women can never measure up to the babes on the screen. It condemns them to failure. It's not about us, it's about what we're doing to them. God help us, men. God help us. He's got to set us free from using women as objects. Objects of our desire. This is the farthest thing from what God intended for our sexuality. Why did God do this to us anyhow? I don't know whether you know it or not. If you don't see me afterwards, there's a difference between men and women. The book title a number of years ago covered it. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. But God did this to us. He meant that we would find ourselves in someone who was us, but different from us. In that, dare I say it, climax of surrender and self-giving and receiving. I like what C.S. Lewis has the devil Screwtape say. We've never been able to create anything positively evil. We can only take what the enemy has made good and corrupt it.
Yeah.
And the better it is, the more corruptible. Yes. Yes. The illustration that he uses there of tearing out your eye or cutting off your hand has gotten a lot of young men under condemnation because they feel, as I did, if they appreciate a woman's beauty, they've just broken the law. No, that's not the case. If you look at her in order to lust after her, that's the issue. That's the issue. Third example. You've heard it said, a man can divorce his wife by merely giving her a written notice of divorce. I say, a man who divorces his wife, unless she has been unfaithful, causes her to commit adultery. And anyone who marries a divorced woman also commits adultery. Again, this is not a law. Oh ho! I've just made her an adulteress, or I've married a woman who was divorced, I'm committed. That's not the point. He's not writing a new law. He's using these as examples of what it means to be in the kingdom. What's divorce about? Sometimes divorce ought to be carried out. If a guy is beating a woman to a pulp, we ought not to tell her, well, dear, just pray that God will give you grace, because he hasn't committed adultery with somebody else, therefore it's wrong to divorce him. I want to suggest to you, and again, I'm not Jesus and I'm not making a new law, but I want to suggest to you that there are times when divorce is justified. But what is not justified is, I can't get along with you. I don't love you anymore. I don't want you. Divorcing in order to satisfy myself and my desire is not justified. Ever. Ever. And in most cases in our country, that's why divorce is being practiced these days. Well, it's not working. In the cases that Jesus is talking about, the woman is on the street. This is not biblical, but it was the Pharisaic law. If a man says 3 times, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you, she's on the street. I don't want you. I don't need you. I don't like you. Again, it is using the woman as an object of my desire. You see, marriage is God's great theological seminary. Marriage is the place that we learn what love costs and what it means. A wise man said to me early in Karen's and my marriage, he said, I think I began to love my wife on the day when all the feelings were gone and she asked me to do something for her that I did not want to do. And I did it. I believe I began to love her that day. Yes. Yes. It's precisely in the strains, it's precisely in the misunderstandings, it's precisely in those issues. It was the same man who said to me after 50 years of marriage, he said, if you ask me what she's going to do, I can tell you with about 99% accuracy. If you ask me why she's going to do it, I haven't the foggiest idea. Yes, yes. But no, that's too hard. That's too difficult. I think this fluffy-headed 18-year-old who's looking for her lost father will satisfy me better than you're satisfying me. I like the line that appears several times in the Old Testament. The wife of your youth. The girl who gave you her first beauty. And now if the flower is a little wilted, will you throw it away? What's the underlying principle of the kingdom? The underlying principle of the kingdom is that self-giving, self-denying love